podcast. Hopefully, this is take 4 for the introduction. Thank you for listening, folks. This is going to be the first episode of Amateur's Note, presented by Matinee Edition for the first couple. And I would love to introduce my lovely girlfriend, Kate Peterson.
Hello.
If you've been listening to Matinee Edition for a minute, but we need to get the cheers out of the way.
Cheers.
There we go.
Okay, we blew out the mic the first time.
we overload the microphone the first time. If you've been listening to Matinee Edition for a while, you'll have noticed that I bring up Kate quite frequently because we watch everything together, and a lot of her interests have fed into mine, and a lot of my interests she either loves or hates. If it's Fast and Furious, she hates it.
We have some of the same opinions and some very differing opinions.
Yeah, I think, but that's good.
Yes.
It's a great thing. I always think it is interesting, the conversations that we have while we are just like sort of hanging out, and why not record it? Hopefully this will be a fun spin-off of Matinee Edition, and hopefully we can crank them out. So we thought this first episode would be nice to just sort of introduce ourselves, mostly Kate, because hopefully you guys know me. Hopefully you've been paying some attention while listening to Matinee Edition.
Somebody's watching this saying, who the fuck is that guy?
Who is it? He's recording on a different microphone. You don't recognize the voice. So, babe, I guess in terms of entertainment, what is like a defining franchise? I know this, but I think it's important that you bring it up. The listeners might, honestly, if they're listening to Matinee Edition.
Well, she who must not be named, J.K. Rowling, wrote in, 1990-something, the Harry Potter series.
Yes.
And that was very influential in my life. But it goes without saying, fuck J.K., she sucks. But still, Harry Potter holds a very special place in my heart.
Yeah.
And I made you watch all of the movies.
I really enjoyed them.
You did not like the first one.
It was boring. But after the first one,
but the first one is the most nostalgic.
I mean, to a layman like myself,
no. Layman?
Yeah, I could call myself a layman to Harry Potter, right?
Okay, well, not anymore. I feel like I've indoctrinated you.
Yeah, I enjoyed the Fantastic Beasts.
You took the quiz. You purchased a Hufflepuff scarf.
You bought that
before everything with JK. We don't like to give her our money anymore.
Until Hogwarts Legacy comes out, then we're going to buy that game and donate to charity.
We're pieces of shit. What can I say? Anyway.
I think, no, you totally got me into that. But you've, like, some of the most fun back and forths we've had in recent history were about my relative neutrality to the Fantastic Beasts franchise and you somewhat loathing them.
I have a lot of issues with the way that they handled things, just because I feel like it's a big corporation who is going for a cash grab.
Yes.
But you feel more...
I don't know. I'm the more general fan, you know?
You're more like, well, they're creating something and it's fun, so what's the harm?
Yeah. And then you verbally slap me across the face. You're like, this isn't fun. This is disrespectful to my childhood.
We had a very intense argument about...
I talked about it on Matinee Edition.
You did?
Yeah, when we watched, me and Jared watched that trailer. And he shared a lot more with you than he did with me. At least idea-wise. I thought it was very interesting.
About what? What did he say? Now, this is just a recap of another Matinee Edition episode, though.
But no. I was like, I really think, like, Harry Potter, the films themselves, they have a lot of heart to them. They're very enjoyable. I really enjoyed watching them. But I like how Fantastic Beasts is, like, pushing the visualization of a lot of, like, the spells and stuff.
Okay, yes. And this is what we argued about.
Exactly. And Jared just went on about fucking hating Jude Law. And
Okay, well, I don't hate Jude Law.
No, but then also thinking that it's sort of like agreeing with you to a point that it is sort of selling out on a beloved franchise because you know it'll make money.
Yes.
And that's the allure. Once again, Jared is like a classic Harry Potter fan as well.
Yes.
Like yourself. I completely come from a different perspective. That isn't what we were going to talk about on this podcast. Free flow. What about, we'll leave it in. I think it's funny. How about, book, movies, Harry Potter, in recent years? What are some movies or books or anything? Games. I taught games on Matinee Edition. Anything that you've really enjoyed?
Well, I did not. This is sort of a flip-flop. I did not grow up playing games. That was something of your childhood.
Yes.
We had a Wii, but the only games on it were Wii Sports and
an absolute classic.
My brother had some like first-person shooter game that I would watch him play, and he wouldn't let me touch. So
your brother right there. Sounds like Victoria. Something Victoria would say.
So I've gotten into gaming more since I've been dating you.
Yes.
And what was the first game that I played? All the way
Stardew Valley.
Was it Ori?
No, I think it was Stardew. I think Stardew Valley like got you into it. Ori was the first like narrative-based game that you really played.
Okay.
Either way, both are phenomenal.
Yeah, so like the start of the pandemic, we had just moved in together.
Yep.
And so I had access to Lucas's Xbox.
Yep.
And so I played Stardew because a friend of mine actually recommended it to me, Sophie.
And you really wanted to play Animal Crossing, but we didn't have a Switch at the time.
I really wanted to play Animal Crossing, but we didn't have a Switch, and it was expensive, and they were like sold out everywhere.
Yeah.
But this was in that like cozy game sort of realm.
A lot of people that like Animal Crossing, they're cut from the same cloth, right?
Except Stardew is way more intense. Talk about a non-relaxing game. That game is a farm simulator, which you think would be relaxing, but it is not. Yeah. It is very stressful. But it sucks you in. You recommended it actually to one of your customers, and
she's been absolutely ruined by it.
She's in a rabbit hole.
Maybe I'll tell her that we shout her out. Giselle, you're great. And I'm so happy that you're into Stardew. You got sucked into it though. It was a great time sink for a period of time where there was literally nothing else to do.
Yeah.
It was great.
It was great. And then you ended up playing it as well.
Yes. And that's another thing. That is not a genre of games that I really participate in much, but it was great.
You did. I think you played sort of a nerfed version though, because you didn't have.
Look at this. She's using gaming terminology. I'm so proud.
Is that a game term?
Yeah, nerfed.
Okay. Well, because I had played it first and you had watched me play a lot of it.
Yeah.
And part of Stardew is there isn't a lot of guidance.
Yeah. So I sort of went into it, and this is an important thing. The most rewarding part of Stardew Valley, to me, were all like the relationships with the villagers. If you haven't played, then you wouldn't know. But there's like really elaborately written and elaborately set up like relationships that you can build by like gifting people specific things or doing things with them. And it's really well done. And I think like getting in there and like befriending all these other people in like different orders than you did was a lot of fun.
Yeah, it's almost like a choose your own adventure sort of
definitely
thing.
In theory, you can do everything, but it's like so free flowing that it lets you do whatever you'd like.
Which I didn't think I would like because I'm a very narrative driven person.
Yeah.
But there is like a story in
somewhat
Stardew. I don't know. There's a story with each of the characters, which makes it the most interesting.
But I think by the end of the game, you sort of have like written your own to a point.
Yeah, I mean, like you could keep playing that game
endlessly,
but it starts once you like.
There are diminishing returns.
I stopped playing it because the story sort of.
You got to the threshold that it's like you did everything you could.
Well, no, there was
within
more
reason.
I could do.
Within reason.
And now there's an expansion, so there's even more to do. But
and the Haunted Chocolatier is on the way.
Yes.
Yeah. So. Excited for that. What about Ori? The Blind Forest.
Okay, Ori was a completely different experience because it's a platformer, right?
Yeah, it's a platformer. It's like a technical platform.
And that is it's a very narrative driven story. And so I played the first Ori game, which I loved. I think we both cried at the end of it.
Because I watched her play through most of it.
Yeah.
Number one, music's phenomenal.
Oh, great music.
Complete, and there's no voice acting except for like this like otherwise there's something in like a different language that just sort of reads some lines, but mostly there isn't voice acting. And it told a really good story. And this extends the Will-o'-the-Wisps as well.
And the story kept going with the second one. And the second one, I sobbed.
Oh, it's such a great ending, though.
So,
let's be real.
Watch out if you play Ori.
But I think those are great, right?
No, it's fantastic.
Fantastic. Enough so that, like, you were a relatively non-gamer. And Ori's a very difficult game to get. Mm-hmm. Just in like all the mechanics, and I would still recommend it to people who aren't like gamers, you know.
Yeah, there are parts of it where it's definitely frustrating.
Yeah.
To like, especially as a non-gamer, I like didn't understand the game mechanics of it, but
you eventually get it.
I get it, and you know, don't be afraid to watch guides on YouTube.
Yes,
which is what I did.
I don't know, and then so this is something that I think separates us a bit more. We have very different tastes in TV at times. Like, there's a lot of crossover, like everything. But, like, you couldn't sit through Breaking Bad.
No, I couldn't. I'm sorry. I couldn't.
And I'm still disappointed.
I got far, though. I don't remember exactly how far, but You
got like 3 seasons in, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah. And Breaking Bad is my favorite show ever. It's a fucking masterclass in storytelling, in my opinion.
Yes.
And I don't know. As an example of something that I couldn't sit through, Outlander.
Okay, I completely understand why you can't sit through Outlander. It's a very female audience centered thing.
Yeah.
So I can understand.
Yeah.
But I remember when Breaking Bad was like the big thing, and my dad and my brother watched it. It was serial, right? Like it would come out episode by episode. Yeah,
episode by episode. It wasn't. It was like pre-big streaming.
Yeah, so I
think
remember.
it ended in 2013, 2014.
Oh, wow. So it's been that long.
I know.
So I remember when Breaking Bad was like a huge thing.
Yeah.
And my dad and my brother watched it, and I couldn't watch Breaking Bad not because the story wasn't like intriguing to me.
Yeah.
But it was just so depressing.
It can get very upsetting.
So I have nothing against Breaking Bad.
Yes.
It just like I'm an empath. And it hurts my soul.
I think okay. Another TV show question.
Yeah.
TV shows. You got me into like Daredevil and stuff. And Stranger Things. Important.
Daredevil? No, you watched that before me.
I got way more into
That's
it once
what we bonded over when we first started dating.
I got more into Daredevil because we started dating. And like all the other shows in the Netflix verse. And but then you also got me into Stranger Things. And it's something that we love and me and Jared talk about all the time.
My life.
I think, so we cross over in that. Me and Jared have talked about this at length on Matinee Edition. Your thoughts on Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D.?
Okay. So, Lucas and I bonded over the Netflix shows.
Yes.
And so we had this like connection with Marvel, and I'd watched all the Netflix shows.
We progressively watched all the movies as well.
Yes.
This is before everything. It was when that was expected to all be in the same canon.
Yes. And it was before, like, Jessica Jones season 2. It was...
I think at that point, yeah. I think it was like Luke Cage had come out.
Yeah.
Because Iron Fist came out afterwards.
And we watched Daredevil season 3 together.
Yes.
Did we watch season 2 together? Anyway.
I think you fell off of the Netflix shows before I did. I think the last thing I watched was The Punisher season 2.
Yeah, I didn't watch that at all.
The Punisher is fucking sick.
That
was a great series.
Talk about something that just hurt my soul a bit.
Yeah, it's very sad.
The Punisher. But I had never watched Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D.
Yes.
And so you were like, well, you have to watch it because it's like part of the canon.
I also genuinely thought it was great.
Yeah. And so we started watching season 1, and I remember you prefaced it with, we should watch it. I might skip through some of it.
Yeah, some of the early episodes where it's just very Monster of the Week heavy.
Yeah.
Before the really like serialized narrative picks up. Mm-hmm. Which in hindsight I do slightly regret because they're just like fun interactions.
But I don't know if you hadn't skipped. I don't know if I.
But that's the
would have held on.
Exactly. I think that was actually that show's Achilles heel. Is that the cool serialized narrative didn't pick up soon enough. Mm-hmm. So like it was canceled. And then Disney saved it.
Oh, really?
Yeah, twice. It was canceled after season 1 and then after season 2. And then I think by season 5, it was the most watched show on network TV.
That's crazy to me.
Yeah, I know. It's crazy. So, but it, like, a lot of people fell off early on. Mm-hmm. So, and both times Disney was like, nah, this shit's good. So, you fuckers should watch.
No, I enjoyed Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., but yeah, that first season was a bit, I don't know, rough and tumble. And then it just kept going and going and going. It was one of those things like Supernatural is a really good example.
Oh, that is a good example.
And you know I love Supernatural.
Yes. You never finished it.
I never finished it, but Supernatural holds a very deep place in my heart just because I don't know, it was like my comfort show when I was going through a hard time.
Totally fair.
But it's like a Monster of the Week type show.
Yeah.
Usually there's like, there's an overarching story, obviously.
Yeah.
But it just keeps going, and like the main characters die like several times, but then they find a way to come back.
Yeah.
And it sort of got that way with Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., especially with Coulson.
The later seasons that started happening a bit too much. I do think with Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., the highs are so high, though.
Yes.
And, like, the lows, I'm like, what the fuck is this, guys?
And my favorite characters were not... I didn't really care about Daisy. I didn't like her.
Yeah.
I cared about Coulson.
Her Daisy stuff was very front-loaded in the series.
Yes.
Like, by season 4, she's a complete character.
Yeah, but they still...
But then they still keep going back to her because she has so much history on the show.
Yeah, in the later seasons, they're still, like, propping her up as this, like a hero.
Which she is.
But she sucks.
But I think by the end, you realize, like, oh, the heart and soul of the show is Coulson and Fitz and Simmons.
Yeah, Fitz and
I think
Simmons.
the writers realized that as well.
May.
And May. And Mac.
And Mac. And Yo-Yo. Everybody except Daisy.
I think, and actually, it was great when they brought on Yo-Yo as, like, a full-timer on the cast. I think it was season 5. Mm-hmm. She was a great addition. But, no, I feel like Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. peaked in, like, season 4 and 5 for me. All the Ghost Rider shit was awesome.
Yeah.
I still think Gabriel Luna should come back in the MCU proper. To be a Ghost Rider.
It dropped off with him, and I wanted that to keep going.
I wanted to see more. I wanted him to come back in the last season. They were doing so much fun stuff. And like,
wasn't there a talk about there being a Ghost Rider show?
Yes, it was supposed to be a Hulu show. It got axed.
Yeah, so I think that was part of why.
It's like one of the few projects that like fell through with Marvel. Like, actually, this is something me and Jared talk about all the time in Matinee Edition. DC announces so much shit, and they like just cancel half of it. It's like they throw out like, yeah, we're gonna do there was like the Deep, which were like this. They were from Aquaman. Mm-hmm. You watched Aquaman.
Yeah.
The like weird like fish people that like attacked them in the middle of the night.
I don't remember, but sure.
Yeah, whatever. It's a small scene, and it was like a weirdly horror centric moment. And they said they were going to do a horror movie with, like, this thing. And later they were like, oh, it's going to be a Black Manta movie. You know Black Manta? The dude with the helmet in Aquaman? Like, the lasers? No? God damn it.
I watched that movie on a plane when I was either coming back or going to New Zealand.
Fair enough.
And I don't remember.
But whatever. So it's like, oh, Black Manta's a big Aquaman villain. Mm-hmm. They're like, oh, it was going to be a Black Manta movie, but we canceled it. And like they've canceled half of the projects they've announced at this point. Ben Affleck's Batman was going to have... Matt Reeves was going to direct a Batman solo movie with Ben Affleck that then evolved into The Batman. Mm-hmm. So, yeah, whatever. Marvel's rarely done that.
Which I think is smarter.
It is. Well, absolutely. Absolutely. Because you set that expectation. I think it's like really just that Ghost Rider show, and there was going to be an Inhumans movie.
Yes, I remember that.
With Vin Diesel as Black Bolt.
Vin Diesel?
Here's the thing, though. Black Bolt can't talk.
Have you ever listened to Vin Diesel's...
actual voice?
No, his music.
Yes. I think me and Jared did a few years ago.
He's a musician.
It's terrible. It's a fucking atrocity. I think... No, but Black Bolt is he's an Inhuman that's voice is so loud that he can't talk. That's his power.
Okay.
So it's like he was going to keep voicing Groot. But then he was going to be in another role that was just like his physical presence.
Which...
could work.
He's got a physical, that's good.
He's a physical presence. He can emote worth something. I know that from Fast and Furious. Mm-hmm. But no, where is the conversation? This is supposed to be introducing like stuff that you like, and me sort of asking.
This is
about
also
stuff.
not talking about. We talked about games for way too long. We're supposed to be talking about like stories. So I mean that counts, but
yeah, I mean it's this. Like I said, this is sort of an introductions episode.
And something to note about Lucas and my dynamic is he knows way more about Marvel than I do.
And just like I feel like a lot of franchises in general, like a lot of like modern film franchises, I'm really
because you read comics.
Yes.
The only comics that I was reading was Archie comics.
But that said, I do think it's worth noting you have a very interesting input on like story structure. Listeners definitely, I may have mentioned this on my Matinee edition, but to reiterate, Kate is an English major.
I'm graduated now. Huh?
But you were an English major. You've graduated.
Mm-hmm.
You want to write a book. That is your goal in the future.
Yes.
And
wait, you have to specify that my degree is in fiction writing.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, it is.
I'm a bad boyfriend. No, but you're so like that's your goal. You always have like your takes are slightly different than mine because like I understand a lot of like the overarching lore or sort of like the history of some characters, but then you usually have good thoughts about like the general structure of a story.
Yes.
As an example, I was able to totally geek out about Shang-Chi and really enjoy the action sequences and even getting into that ridiculous fucking third act. and you said it fell apart for you by then. Just as an example.
Yes,
not enough to make it bad.
No, like you can still enjoy something. This is something with writing is there are technically like rules and things that you shouldn't do. Yeah. But those aren't like black and white. Like if something works, it works, even if it's not like technically a good thing to do. Yeah. But as someone who has been critiquing, like story structure and especially
it's literally what you studied.
Yeah, and like we would do workshops of people's stories and be like, this is what's not working in your story. Yeah. You need a side character because of this reason. Yeah. So Shang-Chi I thought was like a bit messy. Yeah. Especially because they like introduced the whole mystical element and
really late in the film.
I was so thrown off. I was very confused.
It's like, and I think
and then there was a whole other world that they like traveled to. Sorry, I'm yelling. But I was like, what is happening? But,
it was entertaining.
It was entertaining.
Yeah. I mean, no harm done. But it's like, I do think, and this is something that I noticed in that movie and that you pointed out to me, that you also noticed after the, like, all the big sequence in like on like the skyscraper where there's all the scaffolding fight, they get captured. It's like the pace of the movie just dies. It was very upbeat, very quick. But then you hit that point and you just have like 45 minutes of exposition.
Yeah.
With like a very brief car chase.
Well, and I think they fell off with the sister.
I think they're saving her though. Also, apparently she's getting a Disney Plus show.
Okay, but we literally were just talking about Marvel having a TV show and then planning to do something that broke off.
Yeah.
And then it didn't work out. Like, you have to make the first piece stand alone.
I guess that's fair.
So
this is why we're doing the podcast. This is it. No, but maybe we'll talk more about Shang-Chi at some point. But
okay. I'll save my thoughts then.
Yes, I think we don't want to burn through everything on episode 1. I think so. But I did have something that we took note of. That we did have we had nominal thoughts and we could dive into it, sort of just see where the conversation takes us. Turning Red, the new Pixar film.
Yes.
This is usually something on Matinee Edition. I'll watch whatever the most recent Disney animation is, and I'll talk about it. Usually Jared doesn't watch them until a lot later. We'll watch them together. I thought that this would be perfect for us to sort of give a pseudo review thoughts on it, you know? Mm-hmm. And I don't know, general idea. How do you enjoy it?
I really liked it. I wasn't expecting much, I'll be honest.
Me too.
From the trailer, I was a bit like, what is happening?
Yeah.
And I also had the thought of one of the criticisms of Disney and Pixar is when they have characters of color, that they turn them into animals.
Which they did again.
And so I was a bit off-put.
Yeah, at least initially.
But I really enjoyed it.
Yeah.
And I think that it did a lot more work in exploring culture and celebrating that more than turning Tiana into a frog, that sort of thing.
Oh my god, yeah, that's the most egregious. And then keeping her as a waitress in the end.
Does she stay as a waitress?
Yeah. At the end, she's like, I was happy with who I was. The Princess and the Frog is a fucking terrible movie.
Oh. I don't know. It's been a while. But Turning Red. Back to Turning Red.
I mean, it's Disney. It still applies.
I
was
surprised by how fast-paced it was.
It moved.
In the beginning, it was going
Which actually, I've seen a lot of reviews from people saying that that's a detractor. That they were expecting it to be a bit more slow-paced. I personally really enjoyed it.
No, I liked it, but this is the thing where it I think skirts the line of, is Pixar catering to an adult audience or a child audience? Yeah. Because actually, I don't know, maybe children would appreciate a faster paced movie.
I think so, to a point. I think it's a give or take, you know?
But
I feel like that
specifically with Turning Red, the part that was more adult is when she's having those nightmares.
Oh yeah, there's some horror vibes.
There's a nightmare sequence where
a lot of jump scare heavy.
Is thinking about the red pandas, and it's scary.
Yeah.
If I was a kid watching that movie, I'd be terrified.
Yeah.
Also, I don't think that the theme would necessarily be caught on to by...
But even as a kid, it's you're not really watching it for the themes. You're watching it for the dancing red panda.
True.
I think...
Which is very cute.
Yes. I think that Turning Red, in my opinion, succeeds for the most part at being hitting the Pixar balance in a way that I don't think as a recent example, Soul did. Soul was too heavy.
That's an adult movie.
That is an adult movie in a good way. I really enjoyed it, but I think kids would be either freaked out or unable to understand it.
Yeah.
I think Luca, as another recent example, it hits the balance of it pretty well as well, but I think it leans a bit more into the kiddie stuff. That's a really approachable family film. Mm-hmm. I think Turning Red skirts the line really well.
But I think you could say that's the point.
Exactly.
Because part of what the movie is about is growing up.
Exactly. And I think it's a very effective coming-of-age story.
Yeah.
I think, and how it brings generational trauma into the mix is also very effective. Mm-hmm. and the panda sort of being a representation. We thought it was about periods initially.
Okay, well, no, just because there's this sequence where she has become the panda and she's freaking out and her mom doesn't know yet.
Yeah.
And her mom thinks that she got her period and that's why she's like hiding in the bathroom and stuff. And I was like, well, it's called turning red.
Yeah. Which I think it was funny. It was a good bit.
But I think that's part of, I don't know.
Yeah, no, it's definitely part of it. And I think, I actually saw a reviewer point out the fact that, like, this is, like actually periods, such an essential part of life for young women, is never fucking talked about anything.
No.
Like, at least overtly, like in Turning Red.
Yeah.
They really get into it. It's fucking awesome. Great. But I think overall the film, like, it used the panda as like a really good device for like how like developing your own personality. And when you get into like the mom and you're able to see like her past and all that and sort of get hints of it through the film with whether that's her relationship with the grandmother or the mom's relationship with May. I thought it was a really effective tool to, like the panda. And I won't outright spoil it, but I really enjoyed the movie.
Yeah.
I think an apt comparison though, because of how it brings in general trauma or generational trauma, is Encanto.
Yeah, I think they're gonna be compared.
Oh, they already are.
Ooh.
I mean, it's like that's an interesting thing because they do tread a lot of similar ground. It was like two sides of Disney watch the bow, like.
Well, isn't the director...
the director of Turning Red is the Bow.
Yeah.
Is the Bow director. That incredible short from a few years ago. I think, what was that movie in front? What was that in front of?
Oh,
I remember we watched it in theaters.
I don't know. It was a Pixar.
Yeah, it was a Pixar movie. I think Incredibles 2.
No, was it Inside Out? I think it was Inside Out.
No, because I didn't watch Inside Out in theaters. And I remember I watched that in theaters, and when she ate the bao bun, like the entire theater audibly gasped.
But
I think it was Incredibles 2.
It would make sense in front of Inside Out anyway.
Yeah, I think, but that was, it's like somebody watched, like, obviously the director of that short went on to direct Turning Red. And it's like somebody watched that, and then the raccoon short that was in front of Luca, and then, or not in front of Luca, in front of Encanto. And then was like two different sides of Disney, the Pixar side and the Disney animation side, were like, generational trauma is interesting.
Oh, God.
I think, but like both of them did it well and explored like a different angle of it. To a point.
I think they're different enough
to stand alone.
But I mean, anything that Disney, they're going to be compared, even if they weren't both about generational trauma.
But I think it's especially apt considering how closely they released.
Yeah.
I think, I mean, that said, Encanto has become a fucking phenomenon.
Well, then you have to ask the question, which one did you like more?
Oh, it's difficult to say. I really loved the animation style of Turning Red.
Yeah.
I thought like the hints it took from anime were really fun. And the sometimes like I also like the upbeat pace was really fun.
Yeah, and I didn't realize that it was going to be taking place in 2002.
Yeah, stylistically interesting.
So it like calls back to our childhood. That's why it's, again, made for older people in a way.
Something that a kid wouldn't even catch, probably.
No. But they had like a boy band in there.
Yeah, very in sync. Oh my God, Arlo just yawned and is struggling to keep his head up.
He looks weird.
Arlo, this is continuing the trend. Oh, good stretch, bud. Continuing the trend of Old Heart Radio hosts getting distracted by their pets.
He's pretty cute.
At least Arlo's not humping shit all the time like Bowie.
Oh.
It's
Bowie,
fine.
no.
Bowie, no. We bring his blanket in so he can get his rock on while we're recording. I think...
This is why we need some more female influence.
Exactly. Too many men. Hear that, Arlo?
As we say to our male cat.
I think, no, but I've mentioned this to you. Musicals don't really do much for me, usually.
I didn't realize Encanto was a musical when we went to go see it.
I knew it was.
I did not know.
And the songs weren't bad. It's definitely some of the better Disney music. I mean,
I thought you really liked the music.
I did. I mean, like, We Don't Talk About Bruno is fucking incredible.
Yeah. I was about to sing it, but we don't have the rights for that.
Yeah, we don't want to get copyright stuck. but I think like the songs serve the narrative well, in my opinion. Mm-hmm. Most of them were forgettable, as per usual with Disney musicals, again, in my opinion. So it's difficult to say that that's a detractor, but I think like I might have enjoyed it slightly more than Turning Red.
Okay.
I don't know. I can't really put my finger on why, but I think I don't know. I definitely think the ending of Turning Red is a lot better than the ending of Encanto. Let's not divulge the specifics of Turning Red.
But I think I agree. I think that I liked Encanto a little bit more.
But do you agree with me about the ending?
Yeah.
We're far enough removed from Encanto that we can
I think that Turning Red was more of a complete story.
Yes.
But I don't know. Encanto was like the concept and the magical realism.
Yeah.
And
this is why we bring Kate on to say stuff like magical realism.
Well, actually, I don't even know. Maybe it's just straight up fantasy. But magical realism as a genre is really big in Latino culture.
Yeah. Which, I mean, that was one of the most fun parts about that for me watching it.
I'm not of that descent, so I can't speak to it.
Kate Peterson, the rest is sweet. I think
there's a very famous author who is Latina, and I cannot remember her name, but she writes magical realism.
Okay.
I'll have to look it up.
Well, I think with Encanto, I can see that genre fitting though, because it's very grounded. Besides these like very like otherwise, other than the family, just a bunch of normal people. The aesthetic isn't too fantastical either. Yeah. So it just is sort of grounded in Colombian culture for the most part. Now I think I enjoyed it slightly more, but like at the end of Encanto, everyone gets their powers back, and I was I'm emoting as if I'm flipping the table right now. I was like, boo! They all need to deal with it. They all need to deal with their problems, because it was all about how like the family needs to come together, and the powers are putting too much pressure on the children. Mm-hmm. And the one girl that doesn't have any, Mirabel, the one girl who doesn't have any powers, is like holding the family together, and she finally gets her place to like make a difference when the family, like when the house falls apart. Mm-hmm. She helps everyone to rebuild it. And I was like, son of a bitch. They gave everyone the powers back.
Okay, but I saw somebody interpret it as... Okay, so it's about generational trauma.
Yes.
And each person's, like, powers represent some aspect of being in a traumatic household or whatever.
Yes.
Like, Peppa, the ant, is super volatile. She has, like, the weather ability. And then Luisa is carrying everything. She's the strong one. No.
Luisa's the strong one. Sorry.
So she's, like, she has a whole song about, being burdened with everybody's shit.
Worst song.
Really?
Yeah, I didn't like that song.
I think that's, like, the second most popular one.
Fuck that. The one with Mirabel and the pre-sister is better than that.
Okay, anyway. And then Isabella is like the perfectionist. She's got to be perfect for everybody, but inside she's like crumbling, Yeah. And Mirabel, she doesn't have any powers because she's the one who's going to break the cycle of abuse.
Yes, I've seen that as well.
So I think that it makes sense that they would get their powers back because...
Is it they have like a different like outlook on it now?
No, because they can't really be changed. Like she can only like she's the only one who's going to change really.
Yeah. I didn't like Luisa's song, but I thought her bits were some of the most funny in the movie. Just throwing that out there. Credit where it's due. No, but I really enjoyed it. Turning Red touches on some of the similar points. Definitely worth watching. That's the opposite of what you're supposed to do while recording a podcast, by the way.
Yeah.
Do a long So, I guess this is a good first episode. In general, what we're aiming for with this is we want to talk about stuff we like, talk about some stuff we don't like. The original concept is that we're going to, and we'll probably still do this.
Yeah.
We're going to, in theory, rewrite Eternals. And I was thinking maybe The King's Man. those would be two fun episodes.
I want to talk about movies that I don't like.
Yes. And I think that those are specifically interesting films that have like a lot of people watch them. A lot of people are relatively critical of them. So
well, like what we like to do is talk about movies, and if I see a problem in it, we will try and brainstorm how we would fix it or what we would do differently.
Like imagine we literally walk out of movies, get in the car, and sometimes we're like, this could have been done better.
But this is why the show is called Amateur's Note, because we are not experts. We don't know what we're talking about, but this is just our opinion.
Whether it's through osmosis or through literal study, we can say that we know a bit.
Yeah.
So an amateur. I think, look forward to that at some point. I want to close it out, though, with like talking about some stuff that we've been enjoying lately. So, like, we're currently watching Superstore. How do you feel about that? We just finished Parks and Rec. We enjoy our, like, situational sitcom type shows, you know?
Yeah.
Multi-camera sitcoms. So, and how do you feel about Superstore? Like, Parks and Rec was phenomenal.
Yeah, I think it's a little bit hard since we're coming right off of Parks and Rec. Yeah. And Parks and Rec was so good.
Yeah.
I think that Superstore is good. It's not as funny.
It isn't. I really like it. I worked at a Safeway for a minute.
Yeah, so you relate hard.
Yeah, I think... So I can appreciate a lot of it. It does the thing that like The Office and Parks and Rec does really well, where like like one of everybody. Mm-hmm. Like you're like, oh yeah, I worked with exactly that person.
Yeah.
So
you say that every episode.
Yeah.
There's like somebody that you're like, I know that guy.
I know that fucker. Like the only person I don't know is Jonah, which makes me think that I was Jonah.
I think you are Jonah.
Oh, son of a bitch. No one likes him.
Babe, you're Jonah.
No.
Okay, the gist with Jonah is...
He's the guy, he's the high and mighty guy. Not really high and mighty, but he's the fish out of water, the guy with like opportunity, surrounded by people that are like career, like department store workers.
Yeah, so like Jonah is...
Like college educated.
The first episode is Jonah starting to work at this store. So he's like sort of the main focus of the show, but there's not really a main character. But he's sort of pretentious.
Yeah.
And he's a business school like dropout.
Yeah. He's a bit more he's a bit more knowledgeable / like worldly than a lot of the rest of the cast.
But that's what he thinks.
That's what he thinks, and he fucking wears it on his sleeves. God damn it, I am.
But it's a really interesting character because he's kind of hateable. Because he's so annoying, but you also like care about him. He's the dude that you don't dislike, but can be slightly annoying. Yes.
So, yeah, I think I think, God damn it, but otherwise, Superstore is fun. I'd recommend anyone to listen to that. Maybe we do an episode on it once we finish it. But if anything comes to the forefront. You are currently reading a book that is a bit smutty.
Shut up.
Can you please tell the dear listeners about it?
Okay, well, I need to set the scene first and explain that.
Kate's sci-fi fantasy book.
It's really hard when you're reading a very high fantasy book that is also a romance. And somebody asks you, what are you reading? And this is what my therapist did to me.
I think I tried to not listen to your therapy sessions.
I do them online in the same home as...
Yes. Kate does it in the other room, and they're just... Sometimes some noise will slip through. Like, I was cooking dinner, and I think I heard this question.
Yes.
And you were like,
Yeah, so she asked me what I'm reading, and I like tell her because the book is called... The series... I think it's called Crescent City is the series, but the first book at least is called Crescent City. And I'm now reading the second book.
Yes.
And she asked me what I was reading, and I was like, oh, it's this book called Crescent City. It's a fantasy. It's about, like, there's fae or, like, elves or whatever, and angels and werewolves and merpeople. There's, like, all the flavors of magical beings in it.
But then also there's a bit of sci-fi in it?
So, okay. It takes place in a fantasy world, but it's also like modern.
You've likened it to The Wolf Among Us a few times.
Yeah, so like there's...
It's like as if the fantasy, like the medieval fantasy aesthetic, like continued and like we end up getting to present day.
Sort of, yeah. So there's like magic, like the city is...
Oh, it's like, what was the Pixar movie? Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you, babe. What was the
Pixar?
Onward?
Yeah, it's sort of like Onward.
Yeah.
So like there's a magical force that's like that they use as electricity in the city, and there's like guns, but there's also people with magical powers, and it's I've never read a book in that setting before.
But you're telling me before we recorded it gets a bit sexy.
Yeah, so it's a romance, and it's an adult. This like author, her name's Sarah J. Maas. She has written like young adult novels before, but this one is adult for a reason.
Oh,
because it's a bit sexy.
Are we talking like Twilight or 50 Shades of Grey?
I never read Twilight.
Oh, okay. Are we talking Game of Thrones?
Never read Game of Thrones.
Shit.
It's not 50 Shades. It's not like to that degree, especially the first book. The first book, the most saucy it gets is like there may or may not be a fingering scene.
Oh, Jesus Christ! In text?
In text.
I feel like that'd be so
it was short.
awkward to read.
But in the second book, there's too much.
You were telling me you don't like it.
Well, okay.
The story's good, but just too much.
I am not a hater of romance novels. Yeah. I think that romance has a place, and anyone who says that like romance isn't real literature or whatever can go fuck themselves.
There's value in it.
There is value, and I think that romance is great. It's great, and it sells a lot of fucking books. So
there is an audience.
Sex sells.
It does.
But the story is this is gonna sound so pretentious. Speaking of pretentious people, but the story is really interesting, and I just want to get to that part.
No, that's fair. That's fair. Like it's like you could sort of just like trim the fat a bit, you know?
Yeah, and so this book is like really focusing on like the two main characters. They like, you know, finally get together.
Yeah.
And so they're just like fucking.
So wait, okay, this is important for like I think that you mentioned a while back that this is already getting adapted into a series. Is it this series or was it a different one you were reading? Well, shit. That's awkward.
No.
Do you think it would? Do you think it would? Like
No.
like a Netflix?
No.
Really?
Because, babe, when I tell you these books are thick, you know what they look like.
Yeah. I've seen them.
It's
yes, but it's
thick.
big.
And it's it will never be adapted for this.
Just
screen.
too much.
It's too much.
That's fair.
It's very similar in the way of like how dense the world is to Game of Thrones.
That's interesting.
Which, I mean, obviously that's a bad example because they did adapt that to the screen.
But it took a very long time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And this is a bit like, I don't think, speaking of romance not being taken seriously, sorry. I don't think it'll ever be made into anything because it's like a romancy. It's like a girly book.
No, fair enough.
Whereas like Game of Thrones, you know, it was written by a man. It was written for the male gaze.
This is,
Where this book is written by a woman for the female gaze.
Shit. Hey, hopefully we can be proved wrong though. Who knows? Maybe.
But anyway, it's a very good book.
Yeah.
It's a very good book, and it's dense, and it's complicated, and it's very high fantasy to the point of, like, I had to reread a summary, which I've never really had to do before. I had to reread a summary of the first book to get into the second one.
What was the name one more time for listeners?
Oh gosh, I don't know if the name of the series is different, but I know that the first book is called Crescent City.
Okay, that's a starting place.
By Sarah J. Maas,
okay.
Maas.
One more thing, a game that I've been excited to like watch you play just dropped today, Tunic, which we really got into Breath of the Wild for a minute and Legend of Zelda through COVID.
Speaking of more games that I played.
Yes. Oh, those were fantastic. Once we got a Switch, we've immediately played Breath of the Wild. Mm-hmm. And it's like very old school Zelda. And it's on Game Pass. It's adorable. I think we watched the trailers for it.
Cute. It's a little fox.
Little fox.
It's got a little sword.
Little sword shield. It's like old school Zelda top down like scroller game. just dropped. It's on Game Pass. It's getting great reviews. And
but I have Sable that's on there.
Which I was complaining about more games.
Sable is a game that takes place in like a desert world.
Yeah.
And the music is by a artist that you really like.
Yeah, Japanese Breakfast.
And I've only played like the first, I don't know, like 10 minutes.
Yeah.
But I was enjoying it. I mean, I haven't picked it up.
It's very like the aesthetic sort of Star Wars-y.
Yeah.
Yeah. Mixed with maybe a bit of like anime to it. So, and that got phenomenal reviews as well. So we'll talk about that probably. Should we just? Do you want to plug the book account, the book Instagram?
I have not touched that in forever.
Well, I mean, why not? Bookshop Kitty. That's Kate's.
Oh my gosh, you remembered what it was called?
Yeah.
I literally haven't posted on there in months.
Well, I mean, fucking post on it. You're hosting a podcast now. The people will come.
The people will come. See, now I have a cat. I can monetize our cat.
Yeah. We'll exploit the child. I think
I do have a TikTok. Ooh, follow Arlo the Catto on TikTok. I make TikToks of our cat.
He's been out cold this whole time. This is very out of character for him. I think so Arlo the Cat on TikTok, Bookshop Kitty on Instagram. I will bully Kate into posting on it. Myself, you can follow me at Casserole, CASSOLROLL. Make sure to follow Old Heart Radio on Instagram, Old Heart and Space on Twitter, and the YouTube channel. Please subscribe and go and check out the other podcasts. Hopefully this sees the light of day because I felt like this went pretty well.
Love you, Jared. Big fan.
Yeah, thank you, Jared.
The Overlord.
Mr. Old Heart. He's
like a long gray beard.
He's the Iron Fist above us. Jared, please release the show.
I don't know. Maybe this one should not be released.
I think it's been good. We'll leave this all in.
Okay.
Do we have an outro?
Bum, ba-da, bum.
Not the John Cena thing. We'll get copy strike.
Shit.
The John Cena thing.
I don't know. That's the first thing that came into my head.
I don't know. Keep watching. Amateur's Notes. We're gonna call it.